What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Shaboovie. I'm Miles. Wonderful to see you all, sort of, across computers, whatever. Um, yeah, if you guys have never been to Shaboovie before, welcome. If you have, thanks for coming back. Bottom line for Shaboovie is typically what I do is I take a show, a book, and a movie, hence the super cool logo over here. Shout out to my sister Deanna for making the logo and the website, which is really cool if you hadn't had a chance to check out the website. But basically, I tie in one of each of those bits of media with some universal theme. But this week, I'm going to do something a little differently because I am an egomaniac. And I'm not necessarily going to do the usual pairing that I do. What do you call a pairing when it's three different things? A three? A trioing? I don't know. I'm not going to do that, what I usually do. This week, I'm going to do something totally different. But before I get into it necessarily, I want to let some of you newbies know what you might be getting into. You might have figured this out from how I'm speaking so far, kind of I'm spitting on myself already. But I don't edit Shibuya. It's a streamlined stream of consciousness, whatever term you want to use, because I just don't want to learn editing. It seems like it's really hard to learn, and it seems like a kind of a gross process. So you might hear me spit on myself and not be totally certain of what I'm going to say as I'm saying it, but that's a part of the nature of Shibuya. That's what we all love about it, the millions of us that tune into every Shibuya episode. But anyway, so this week, what I'm going to talk about at Shibuya is the Sun Valley Writers Conference. So, as an aspiring writer over here myself, written a couple books, working on a third book now, haven't got published yet, still just freaking grinding. It is hard to publish a book, guys. It's crazy. But anyway, I try to go to writers' conferences for some inspiration. And the company that I work for, Clary, shout out Clary, gives me a professional development stipend. It's a super, super cool thing. They are awesome with some of these stipends that they give. It's really cool. But basically, it's a way for me to spend some money that they allot me to go and do things to grow professionally. And they know that I want to be a writer professionally and that I don't just like journal or anything. And so they're game to fund those experiences for me. So I basically typed in best writers conferences in America because I've been to a few in Atlanta and in Oklahoma City where I live now. And they're really, really cool experiences. You hear some really cool writers or poets or memoirists or whomever, writers from all over the place or agents or what have you, come and talk about the writing experience. And it's really, really fulfilling and it's a great way for me to kind of refuel my writing engine when I'm finding I'm kind of slowing down or whatever. It's just great inspiration. And I found anyway, the Sun Valley Writers Conference was near the top of the list of every list when you look up best writers conferences in the country. And I included the website here, and these are pictures from their website. It's a pretty incredible experience, guys. It's in Sun Valley, Idaho, and it's for 4 days, and it's all outside at this resort town in Sun Valley. And it's just freaking gorgeous weather. Everyone is so nice. And they attract huge names to come and speak at this conference. They had Salman Rushdie this year, the author of my favorite book ever, Midnight's Children. They had Margaret Atwood last year, author of Handmaid's Tale. They had Judy Blume a couple years ago. It's crazy. They bring in some really, really big names. So it's a pretty incredible experience. And frankly, I wanted to be a little selfish, and share my experience with you guys a little bit and some wisdom that I learned from some of the writers. Some of it applies just to writing. Some of it applies to politics. Some of it applies to just everyday life. But I figured I'd do like a little power ranking of the top 5 little nuggets of wisdom that I heard from some of these writers and share it with you guys. So the first writer that I'm going to name drop here is Liz Moore, who is kind of exploding in popularity. Her book, The God of the Woods, is really taking off right now. And another one of her books, a police drama, Long Bright River, is actually about to be turned into a Peacock show. And she actually, not only did she get to write the book that it's based on, but she wrote some of the episodes too. So it's really, really cool. And Liz was really nice. She was actually the only author that I got a chance to ask a question in Q&A. And all these authors signed my books, by the way, and told me to like keep writing and stuff. They're all so fucking cool. But anyway, so she's really, really awesome, really down to earth, and really taking off right now. And one of the more younger writers at this conference. And the nugget of wisdom that I got from her applies to writing, but it also sort of can apply to anything. She was basically saying, don't be afraid to write around things. And it's sort of about her writing philosophy. And this is nuts. She didn't, there were a lot of cases when she would be writing God of the Woods in particular, and this is sort of how she writes all her books, where she literally doesn't know what's going to happen next. So, like with God of the Woods, there's a bunch of different perspectives. So she would be like writing one character's chapter, and let's say at the end of that chapter, that character's about to open a door. Then she would just end the chapter because she didn't know what was on the other side of the door. And she would pivot to a different perspective and go, all right, I'll get to what's on the other side of the door later, and create some like unintentional but intentional suspense because she just didn't know what she was going to write next. I'm like super over analytical when I write, or really when I do anything. I try to plan a bazillion steps ahead. But the fact that someone can kind of sort of plan this stuff on the fly like this, and this is actually kind of common to hear this from some of the authors at the conference, is they come up with a lot of stuff on the fly. It was really cool to hear, and it kind of, I hope it helps me sort of embrace more of an improvisational approach to things. A little help me increase my spontaneity a little bit and not be so over analytical. I feel like a lot of us get anxiety about analyzing the what ifs of a situation and hypotheticals. But hearing stuff like this from like a best selling, award winning author was just really, really cool and helped me open up a new way that I can write and a new way that I can do a lot of different things. Number 4 was Doris Kearns Goodwin. And these aren't necessarily like the rankings of the best speakers or anything. I just like these nuggets and I ranked them just for shits and gigs, like whatever. But anyway, Doris Kearns Goodwin is a legend in the realm of biography. She's done biographies on a bunch of different presidents, FDR, Teddy Roosevelt. Her book on Lincoln, Team of Rivals, was turned into the Daniel Day-Lewis movie Lincoln that Steven Spielberg directed. It's an awesome movie. And she actually worked in the White House for LBJ back in the day. The woman is a machine. She's 80 years old. You would never guess it. She speaks faster than any human I've ever heard and has a wealth of knowledge. It's like insane. It's like she's lived like 5 different lifetimes. But the woman knows politics and she knows America. I mean, she was there protesting the civil rights movement. She was there protesting the Vietnam War. Like she's been around for a long time. And something that I heard her say, and I think a lot of people really, really relish the thought of this, was that America is not as fragile as people think. Because obviously, we're in a pretty tumultuous time in American history right now. And Doris really wanted to drive home that, like, yes, there are a lot of really not great things happening right now, but it would have to be something just like biblical to actually tear the country apart because the country has been through other things at its other eras when it seemed like it was ready to just like explode. And it never did. America always rallied and came back together, whether it was civil rights, Vietnam, whatever war you have, the Civil War, when the country literally divided and then came back together. So that was just a great way to have that a historian's perspective on no matter how bad things seem now, socio-politically, there's never been an era where America has like broken. And so that was really uplifting to hear from someone who maybe knows America better than like 99% of people do. Really, really impressive and really, really inspiring stuff. Number 3 was my guy, Salman Rushdie. Like I said, Midnight Children is my favorite book ever. I didn't even know Salman Rushdie was going to be at this thing until 2 days before. They always have this like surprise writer that they announce a couple days beforehand. And they announced him, and I couldn't believe my luck that I had bought a ticket to this conference and he was going to be there. Outrageous. If you guys don't know Salman Rushdie, legend in the literary world. He's been active for like 50 years. Um, his book, Midnight Children, won the Booker Prize, which is a top tier fiction award. And at one point, they did a best of the Booker where they looked at every book that's ever won the Booker Prize. And Midnight's Children was number 1. So that shows you how great a book it is. But some of you guys might know Salman Rushdie because of the Satanic Verses, which he wrote, and he portrayed the Prophet Muhammad. And the Ayatollah of Iran actually basically put a religious hit out on Salman Rushdie and said, you're not allowed to do that. So any Muslim, you can go ahead and kill Salman Rushdie if you get the chance. This is crazy. And so he had to live in hiding for like 10 years. And finally, he thought he was like somewhat out of the woods. And then he was stabbed horrifically, like a dozen times 2 or 3 years ago, and now he only has one eye. It's crazy, and it's a miracle that he's even alive. Let alone the fact that he came out of it, wrote another book that was a runner-up for the National Book Award about his experience and about how his wife and his family and friends and physicians and everybody got him through the experience, and is still game to come and speak at conferences after he was literally stabbed at a conference. Crazy, crazy. But anyway, huge proponent of free speech, obviously, since he wrote a book and was getting, just totally run through the muck for it by part of the population. So he's a legend in the literary field. But something I didn't know about Salman Rushdie is he's a passionate feminist. So it was really cool to hear that from him, that he grew up, he really loved his mom, he worshiped his mom. He had, I think it was 4 sisters, really loved all his sisters. At one point, he was really into science fiction and reading science fiction, and he had to pivot away from it because of the portrayal of women in old, like 1950s, 60s science fiction. And at one point, he said, he was talking about his experience nearly dying. And he said, one day you lose the chess match with death. And then he had this random little aside where he said, by the way, if we think about chess, the king is the weakest player on the chessboard and the queen is the strongest. Let's think about that. And it was such like a cool, random, off the cuff plug for feminism, and such like a simple way to kind of think about it, that it was just really neat to hear. Honestly, you don't necessarily hear a lot of these maybe older authors quite be as outspoken about some of this stuff, but the man could not shut up about how much he loved women and think they need to be adored and appreciated and treasured for everything they do. And this was like the comment that best encapsulated all that, so I wanted to share it with you guys. Number two is Ocean Vuong, and to be totally honest, I read his first book, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and you can read the review on the website. And I thought it was like good. I wasn't like totally blown away by it. He won a MacArthur Genius Grant for it, which is basically people being like, "We think you're a genius. Here's $1 billion. Like, do whatever you want with it." And it's a really wild book. Like, it's really raw. It's basically details his experience growing up as an immigrant, as a gay man in a conservative community, and his experience with his mother, and her being an illiterate Vietnamese Vietnam War survivor living in America. And so there's a lot of really like naked, vulnerable truths in it. To be honest, I'm just like not so much a poetry guy, and he's a big poet, so that part didn't resonate with me as much. But man, seeing Ocean Vuong in person, the guy is a genius. He's 36 and seems to be wiser than like anyone I've ever met. It's like he was like reincarnated or something and remembers all his past lives. It's crazy. He just has such a deep understanding of the world. He was just blowing people away at the conference too. It was crazy. And the fact this man wasn't even literate until he was 11 years old. It's absurd. And now he's just one of the most poetically speaking individuals you'll ever hear. And he had so many important things to say. And a lot of it had to revolve around cynicism and kindness. And this was a huge takeaway that I had from him, which was that as a society, we've somehow made cynicism equal to intelligence. Whereas when you actually want to make an effort or be sentimental or talk to people, that effort is embarrassing now. And we've made making an effort embarrassing. And that just like really hit home for me. I don't know what it was, but maybe it is sort of just like the cynicism. I'm having a hard time saying that word, but that we're seeing a lot in the world today, or what. But man, it's just nice to think about the idea that like there's nothing wrong with being emotional or talking to people about uncomfortable things, or communicating with folks when there's a problem or when you think they need something. Like, and for some reason that is a behavior that's deemed as being embarrassing today, and we're like afraid to talk to people, and it's pretty sad. And it was really interesting to hear Ocean go about this discussion, and I honestly feel like I'm trying to like change how I live my life because of a quote like this. It's It was really, really moving. He was pretty amazing. And he ties in a lot to my number one, who came out of freaking nowhere. I wasn't familiar with Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General of the US, only one to serve for 2 terms as the Surgeon General of the United States. Never mind the fact that he was the youngest Surgeon General ever, 36 years old. The guy even went on Elmo and gave Elmo a vaccine to teach Sesame Street viewers about vaccines. It was crazy. I had no idea about the guy, and he came and spoke. And he had a lot to say, sort of hand in hand with some of what I just mentioned about Ocean Vuong. And he actually wrote this book called Together, where he analyzes how loneliness is almost just as damaging as some of these other health pandemics that people are dealing with, like obesity, like smoking. It has some of the similar effects. Like people are more likely to have dementia or more likely to have a stroke if they're lonely. He's found the science behind this. And it was really extraordinary, just hearing him talk about some of the research that he did behind the book and some of what his studies have been to sort of distill some of this research about togetherness and loneliness. He even said at one point he went to a college, and again, similar to what Ocean Vuong said, he was interviewing some of the students, and one of the students asked him, how am I supposed to feel comfortable connecting with someone if it's frowned on to talk to people? Brutal, brutal thing to hear from a kid, basically, too. Just crazy. But yeah, Dr. Murthy's a genius, and just like such, he just reeks of kindness. And something else that he said, like a personal credo that I am like literally trying to honor because it was so influential, was what we need to do as people in everyday life for each other is be present, be real, and show up. So, you know, as much as I'm on my phone, as much as you might be on your computer watching this or whatever, you know, put it down, listen to the conversation happening in front of you, walk around, observe the world around you, be wired into your surroundings, be mindful, and be real. I take that as don't be afraid, like Ocean Vuong said, to be emotional and to talk to people about hard things or see if they have hard things that they need to talk about. And then finally, show up. Again, we live in this society where it might feel kind of weird to go above and beyond for some people. You may feel uncomfortable or you're making them uncomfortable or whatever. But something else that Dr. Murthy said is we don't realize how much people value us in everyday life. So this kind of messes me up, man. So even if you don't feel valuable, you are to somebody. Crazy. Crazy thing to think about. Simple, but yeah. Anyway, forgive me. Dr. Murthy was awesome. He even did this thing, this middle picture, where he just had us put our hands over our hearts and close our eyes and think of the people we love. And it was like, you could tell just like a huge weight was lifted off the audience. It was really an amazing moment. Whew. Anyway, so as you can see, I'm pretty emotional about some of the things that I've learned. It was a pretty amazing experience, pretty life-changing experience. So huge shout out to the Sun Valley Writers Conference again. Check out the website. It wasn't writers there. In fact, it was more readers there than writers. There were some writers in terms of people who attended, not the speakers and panelists and stuff. So if you love books, if you love traveling, uh, if you love writing, I heavily advocate going at one point in your life. It's an incredible experience. And so shout out to the Writers Conference. Shout out to Clary for letting me be able to do this. And shout out to you guys for watching my stuff and always being game to hear me ramble for 20 minutes about things. Follow my stuff if you haven't already. I appreciate you guys. You can always go on the website to check out this and other Shabuvi episodes and reviews and everything. But thanks so much for watching, and I appreciate you guys. And I hope you have some good takeaways from all this stuff like I did. But thanks. I'll see you next time.